We interrupt this program with a special bulletin. America is now under martial law. All constitutional rights have been suspended. Stay in your homes. Do not attempt to contact loved ones, insurance agents, or attorneys, or imaginary internet friends. Shut up. Do not attempt to think, or depression may occur. Stay in your homes. Curfew is at 7 p.m. sharp after work. Anyone caught outside the gates of their subdivisions after curfew will be shot. Remain calm. Do not panic. Your neighborhood Oath Keepers officer will be by to collect urine samples in the morning. Anyone interfering with the collection of specimens will be shot. Houses will be inspected for trace elements at noon. Anyone failing to display the mandatory embossed black velvet Mexican-style painting of Elon Musk on their living room wall will be shot. To further protect private property against terrorist attacks and stains from being touched by people with illegal skin, cameras and surveillance equipment will be placed on all lamp posts and streetlights. Anyone failing to attend morning school prayer and prescribed worship services on Sunday will be promptly arrested and dispatched to a re-education resort. Stay in your homes. Remain calm. The number one enemy of progress is questions. National security is more important than individual rights. Under the provisions of the Patriot Act, Zero Tolerance, the Supreme Court, and the Child Protection and Obscenity and Enforcement Act, all property and life savings of suspected drug users and suspected pornographers will be seized and sold prior to trial, which goes on now. Anyone opposing this policy will be presumed to be under the influence of drugs and shipped immediately to boot camp to serve a sentence of hard labor beneath a smiling inflatable statue of Stephen Miller. Anyone failing to show their papers proving 100% pure Nordic Caucasian citizenship will be detained indefinitely and separated from all family members in a privately operated facility prior to deportation. All illegal non-citizen children will be seized and sold to private converted animal kennels and online hunting ranges until they are forgotten. Sports broadcasts will proceed as scheduled. No more than 2 people may gather anywhere without permission. Use only the drugs prescribed by your coach, your boss, or your supervisor. Shut up. Be happy. Obey all orders without question. Shut up. The comfort you've demanded is now mandatory. At last, everything is done for you. Leave it to me, who hasn't done one of these in a while, to forget to ask for a mic stand on stage. Is it possible to get a mic stand? Pretty pleased with a fly on top. All right, be back in 2 seconds. Okay. Now, first of all, how many of you are from this area? How many of you are from Colorado? Let's start there. How many of you are from the Colorado Springs area? God, not very many. But how many of you have been to Manitou Springs? How many of you have been to these ancient cliff dwellings in Manitou Springs? Aha. Well, have I got a story for you. Somewhere in this brochure, I found at a hotel in Pueblo, these actual ruins, 1100 to 1300 AD, provide a spectacular backdrop for the colorful Indian dancers. And it looks like it's awfully well preserved and put together, doesn't it? Well, one of the people working as a construction worker to put himself through Colorado College, who thankfully took him in when he showed up off a farm in Iowa, was my grandfather, who later ran the physics department at CC for who knows how long. The point being, these are totally fake. And they were built maybe, I don't know, a little maybe before World War I. I don't know. And my uncle said, well, actually, the bricks are probably real and were just pilfered from other ruins in southern Colorado. Anyway, he forbid his own sons, my dad, my Uncle Wes, and then the youngest was Uncle Gary, who told me about that stuff, were forbidden to go there by their father. They're fake! They're fake! Just remember that story next time you see that place or whatever, and have a good yuck over that one. Yeah. How many of you are native to Colorado? A few, okay. Maybe you actually live out of state and just showed up to see some band you're into or something. And that's what I did, and this time they're letting me do stuff too. Thank you to King Giz and band management crew. I've also been told by somebody who's a veteran of old Grateful Dead concerts and things on a variety of visions going on that this is way better run than any of that was. You got general stores, you got merch booths, you don't have people dropping dead or doing weird things all over the place, and you don't have to listen to the Grateful Dead. But anyway, yeah, there's all kinds of weird history in this state. Many a mining boom, they found gold at Cherry Creek, and eventually Denver was built, named after a then territorial governor named Governor Denver. Yeah. Not Bob Denver either. He came later, and that wasn't his real name. But, and they all kinds of, like, one of the big barons in Denver was named Haw Tabor, H-A-W Tabor, and his money was in silver. He made a hell of a lot of it, and to the point where he could scoop up the hottest babe in town, married or not, to the woman who knew the numbers and stuff. And she went by Baby Doe. So eventually, Haw divorced his wife and married Baby Doe. And not that long after that, Congress passed a new law about the price of silver, and his whole fucking empire collapsed overnight. He tried to make a go of it, eventually got a job working in the post office. And then he got sick, and on his deathbed, he told Baby Doe, whatever you do, guard the matchless mine. He thought that one could come back. That's right. I think it's even inside the city limits of Leadville. So Baby Doe went up there and had her shotgun and everything and sat for, what, 10, 20 years, maybe more. Their clothes wore out and everything else, guarding the matchless mine. Eventually, to the point where she'd really lost her own matchless mind and was seen wandering around Leadville in freezing Leadville cold at night with newspapers for shoes and stuff. And eventually Baby Doe died. But that's, and oh, they had a daughter who called herself Silver Dollar, who tried to become an actress in Chicago, but and there was another sister too, I don't know. And more weird Colorado is, I not only grew up in Boulder, born, raised, and escaped, right down from Chautauqua, Boy, do I miss the days I could just go in there in the middle of the moonlight, do all those trails, have it all by myself, and not have to worry about bears and mountain lions, which now come down the alley to visit the old family home every once in a while, as do the bears. But right nearby, maybe a 10-minute walk, about 6 shorter blocks, the JonBenet Ramsey house. And me and my parents were in Santa Fe. We did Christmas there that year, and then we came back, and there was a paper, the Boulder Daily Camp, was about that much on this murder that had just happened, mentioning that she was a child beauty contest person. And then the next day, bigger. The next day, the circus came to town. And a day or night or so after that, I went to a New Year's Eve show in Denver, probably Slim Cessna, and about driving back, there's a lot of snow on the ground. And, 3 a.m., the night is young. What should I do? I know, I'll go to JonBenet's house. So I go to JonBenet's house, and there, in the freezing cold, floodlighting the house at 3 in the morning, I believe it was like a ABC or CBS truck and a CNN truck with their engines rumbling, just in case something happened. The Ramseys had long fled town by then. And then I'm kicking myself ever since, because I have a little Sony Walkman, and whenever I get an idea, just flip it on and get it before I forget it. Been doing that since '77. And I had it in the car, and it didn't occur to me to suddenly put on my Nardwuar or Ali G show hat or whatever, and just flip that tape recorder on. What do you think you're doing? Why are you here? What are you expecting to gain out of this? Most of the big boys are all getting drunk at the Harvest House, not just during the night, but during the day, too, because there's not much more to see at this point. Who knows? Poor JonBenet. Had she lived, she might have been another Britney Spears. But like the people from the Children of the Damned, there's more and more and more of them with the parents to match. And you can see them in singing one of the worst songs ever, in one of the worst commercials ever, and they won't go away. Johnny 1877 cars for kids. Give us money, baby. And then, yeah, we also like to take real estate and property. Like, you greedy motherfuckers. $25 in the mail isn't good enough for you. They want the whole fucking car. Yeah. So finally I Google, okay, who are these people? If they're trying to help homeless kids get good meals or school supplies, COVID vaccines, whatever, okay, I get it. Look them up. That's not what they do. Cars for Kids is an organization who puts the money into taking fairly secular or mainstream Jewish kids and trying to make them more orthodox. And last I read, there are at least some states that have banned them from doing business on the grounds that they're a fraud, which some rabbis have claimed the same thing. So I don't know. In the internet, how can you ban anything in any state when they can just give you their car by going online? Here, come get my car, and it's done and stuff. Anyway, go on about weird Colorado all day, which this one is kind of about anyway. What was that? Frank Azar. I don't know who that one is. I'll have to dig into him. What's that? The strong arm. Okay, I don't know that one. I actually live in San Francisco. I'm just back a lot these days. Anyway, I'd much rather see Giz at Red Rocks or here than some of the other places they play closer to home. Anyway, okay, here we go. Buy my soda, said the Moose Diarrhea salesman. And we did. We all did. When we brought it home and opened it, it was not what we thought we were getting. And instead of searching for what we really had in mind, we settled for searching for another Moose Diarrhea salesman. I remember how disappointed I was when my family brought home our first TV. Yes, we're talking important Colorado history here. But I was bummed out about it because it wasn't black. It was black and white. You turn the, when I was at the store, you turn the TV on, it was color. And there was President Kennedy on the screen, row upon row of him, all the way to the ceiling. Look, Eric, there's President Kennedy. See, that's President Kennedy. Hi, President Kennedy. I toilet trained late. On June 17th, 1963, the U.S. Supreme Court gave me the best birthday present a 5-year-old kid could ask for. They outlawed prayer in public schools right before I started kindergarten. And also, this is just me talking. I don't need monitors. Feel free to turn them off. Anyway, so on November 22nd, 1963, President Kennedy's brains were blown apart on national TV. I came in from the yard, saw my mom crying on the couch. What did I do this time? I had already driven her to tears once that day. Later, in that same living room, Lee Harvey Oswald was gunned down right there on the TV before my very eyes, and again on the instant replays. Kennedy's funeral dirge played on as the flag-draped coffin just lingered on the black and white screen for days, as people slowly filed past to say goodbye. Even I sensed this was a sad, heavy moment, and I was upset too. I wondered if cartoons would ever come back. Well, the monitors aren't off, and there's a little bit of feedback going on, so I'm going to step away from you. There we go. I liked cartoons. Followed at 6 by NBC News. I watched both with equal fascination. I'm told my favorite cartoon characters at the time were Bullwinkle and Senator Everett Dirksen. Even then, I was a news hound, alive at a crucial time and alert to what I saw and what my family chose not to hide or change the channel on. If I asked them what a race riot was, they'd tell me. If I asked them, Daddy, what's Vietnam? They would tell me. Yet, I was terrified of going to Taos, New Mexico over spring vacation because I might run into some greasy Mexican Frito Banditos there with bullet belts and big hats and sneer at me as they leaned against the dirty buildings, might grab me and run off with me like I'd seen them do in so many cowboy and cartoon shows. I was all for Negro civil rights. But when I saw in that little paper, at least they used to give the kids, called My Weekly Reader, that Native American Indians wanted rights too, I couldn't believe their nerve. How dare they ask for rights when after all the trouble they caused on Daniel Boone? I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, about 4 miles from the Rocky Flats nuclear weapons plant. Only time will tell what that really did to my brain. And after all the super fun shit, all they did was put 6 inches of topsoil on that stuff. And then they put up suburbs and hiking and bike trails. And guess what's back? It's very windy there. You know, storms just go out of the Rocky Mountains and you can get hurricanes in Boulder for all practical purposes sometimes. And there. Anyway, in first grade on the playground, we would play war. Sometimes even I'd find myself joining the other pack of boys, all chasing one other kid designated the Jap, all over the playground, yelling, eh, 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 eh. Didn't hit me till years later that a lot of times the Jap was the only Vietnamese kid in our grade, or our school. Never heard of God till about 3rd grade. The same year I had to stay after school one day, same year, and write over and over again, I will not laugh during flag pledge. I will not laugh during flag pledge. Even my mom laughed for years about that afterwards. At home, my dad would read me and my sister, who's not here anymore, she fell in Rocky Mountain National Park with her husband in '96. Anyway, he would read us Greek, Roman, and Egyptian mythology as bedtime stories. And I had a choice to decide on my own whether or not to believe in gods. I'm very grateful for that. And at school, right around that time, that we could write a little bit of stuff, they began asking us to write a little thing about what we wanted to be when we grew up. A lot of the boys, they wrote that they wanted to be a policeman, a fireman, or a baseball player. I wanted to be a Batman villain. I wanted to be the Penguin. I wanted to be the Riddler. Those, to me, were the role models to believe in. Joker, too, and can't forget the bookworm or the egghead. But anyway, that summer on a family vacation, my dad drove me through the ghetto of Detroit to show me up close why people get mad and start riots. I was excited. I got to go to a big city. This wasn't Denver. This was fucking Detroit. Saw the Henry Ford Car Museum, and I finally got to see some real slums. By the time we got back to my grandparents' place on the other side of Mission, where my mom grew up in South Haven, Detroit was on fire, and my grandparents had a color TV. Vietnam blew up in everyone's face. By 5th or 6th grade, everyone at my school knew who was for and who was against the war. The smiling storybook policeman was now a symbol of violent brutality and hate, especially after my dad came home from a social work conference thing he was doing in Southern California, saying an LAPD cop had stuck a shotgun in his belly when he came out of his room to ask why they had blocked off the entrance and strewn concertina wire down the middle of this horseshoe-shaped motel while he was trying to run the social work conference in Santa Barbara. He said the cop was shaking as much as he was. Anti-war protests were a regular event across the street from my elementary school at the University of Colorado. Somewhere I still have my student strike band souvenir. I was one of the first kids in school to have long hair, paid for it too. Somewhere around then was when my parents first started boycotting Coors beer. One night, one of my mother's student employees at the university, the interlibrary loan office at CU, showed up at the front door of our house, out of breath from running, frightened out of his wits. He was about to get picked up and dragged away as a draft dodger. I was the only one home. Then one spring morning, my 6th grade teacher had the gall to start off the class by praising the National Guard for shooting 4 anti-war protesters to death at Kent State. Something inside me snapped. Something inside me said, "This will not stand. This will not stand." Not for me anyway. Not now. Not ever. To rub it in, they forced us to sing almost all patriotic songs in the spring music program that year, but I had a way of getting back at them. I was the worst singer in the class. And the rocket's red glare, you know, that. In 7th grade geography class, there was a long, detailed unit on Soviet communist propaganda techniques, how their government chose people's careers for them, how they manipulated the masses through billboard slogans and slanted news reporting that didn't even bother to tell people what the government didn't want people to know, how their school books rewrote history, said a Russian invented the light bulb. So the next year in 8th grade, I thought to myself, I wonder if these same propaganda techniques are in the American history textbooks too. What do you know? They were. Columbus discovered America. Eurocentric land grab speculators and religious fanatics came to visit and decided to stay to make the so-called New World civilized. It was bad enough finding out there wasn't a Santa Claus. Then I found out that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry owned slaves. and that patriotic heroes of the American Revolution like Paul Revere, John Hancock, Samuel Adams were by modern definition terrorists. And found out in 2012 that the Canadians were celebrating their 100th year of independence by beating back the Americans, who apparently wanted to pull a Trump and take Canada in that war. We're not taught that. Canadians are. What is true? I wasn't there. And then my country was founded by agribusiness plantation pot growers. Yeah, Washington and the rest, they grew hemp. Who didn't feel like paying taxes, if that sounds familiar. And that those pilgrims with the Guns N' Roses hats we had to draw pictures of in elementary school before every Thanksgiving were as whack out of their mind as Pat Robertson, or should I say the Taliban, and later gave us the Salem witch trials. That Father Sarah and the conquistadores and the Yankee cavalry weren't so civilized towards the natives after all. Did a Russian really invent the light bulb? How will we ever know? Much later, I found some old issues of Fortune magazine from early 1941. It was a really big-ass magazine then, real thick, full-page ads from all those corporations we know and love today, bragging about all the money they were going to make once America entered World War II. Then I found out that Ford and General Motors helped supply both the Allies and the Nazis, and then General Motors sued the American government after the war for bombing their munitions factory in Dresden, and won. When I was 15, starting high school, I got called into the counselor's office. He somehow managed to have a comb over on both sides, woven in the middle like a talking Brillo pad or something. Looked like a reptile, too. Eric, it's time for us to sit down and plan your career. What? I'm only 15. What about exploring? What about adventure? What about life? I don't want a career. I hate work. But Eric, look, we have a special hookup to the big computer out at the IBM factory in scenic Niwot, Colorado. You just tell the computer your skills. Do you have any hobbies, Eric? Tell it what you think you might actually be able to stomach doing the rest of your life in an age when meaningful work was already a luxury, and the computer will choose your career for you. Cool. So I tried my sincere best. I entered in, multiple choice, little dots, my life story, my interests, said I like theater, broadcasting, music, forensics, all the cool classes that are getting cut out of the schools because people are too greedy to pay taxes to keep them up, and then the first to complain when their kids come out the other end after a high school senior, all stupid and violent. I was good at English, social studies, maybe math, and the computer clinkety-clunked for a while, as I used to do back then, and then spat back on one of them punch cards that only the Brillo pad man could read, that I should be spending my high school years studying to become a dental hygiene assistant. With a life like that, I guess I should look forward to it. I guess I should stick to daydreaming. That great sin of the American education system that I first got yelled at for and dragged around the class by the hair in second grade. Daydreaming of a far-off Walter Mitty, Cinderella ambition like starting a band. But that's just a dream, because this is the 1970s. The sober, stupid, boring 1970s. That only a bonehead would really want to bring back any part of in any form. When we were coming of age, our 70s show, we weren't dazed and confused. We were disgusted. We missed the 60s. All that fire, all that promise, all that fun, mellowed out, left unfinished, paved over and dumbed down, sold back to us as was now called yuppies. But rock and roll had been reduced to a spectator sport, when the so-called alternative scene that so many take for granted today did not exist. There was no punk rock. There was no hip-hop. There was no indie anything. Underground, garage bands, independent records, zines, discs, let alone Bandcamp and the internet and social media were totally unheard of. In Colorado, you either sounded as horrible as the Eagles or you didn't play. Music was for mature adults, special people with connections who'd paid their dues and could all play as good as Jimmy Buffett. The few friends I knew who played instruments at least talked about trying to start a band, but where would we play? What would we play? Maybe cover some songs by Deep Purple? I'd practice singing on the way to school till I could even hit the high notes in Child in Time. Then, how do you think it felt that right when I was getting into Iggy and the MC5, they were chucking Black Sabbath for Emerson, Lake and Palmer, jazz fusion, and yes! The only band on earth worse than the Grateful Dead, but that's just my opinion. I was a virgin till I was 19, in part because the intelligent hippie chicks I'd get crushes on were mostly into stuff like James Taylor and Cat Stevens. Being a shy, self-conscious dork with no social skills probably didn't help either. But James Taylor and Cat Stevens, ugh! Give me loneliness and a vivid imagination any day. Now at least I'm a shy, self-conscious dork with no social skills, except on stage. And I got a hell of a calling card to hide behind now, don't I? The name Jello Biafra was picked almost at random out of a notebook. Me and my old friend John Greenway, who wrote the original lyrics to California Uber Alice, sat around one night in Boulder making up names for bands, names for people in bands, names for songs, and I liked the way the two images collided in the mind. It seemed to have more staying power than smegma pig vomit. Mucus melanoma, Bobby bacteria was just kind of boring. The other one's in there. On the other hand, imagine when I was on Oprah Winfrey with Tipper Gore as she introduced with her smiling, and in this seat, smegma pig vomit. And none of what's gone down from that little notebook till now would have been possible if I'd clung to my original vow to always rebel by never changing. I was going to be the last die-hard hippie on earth. Other people were selling out and cutting and feathering their hair with male Farrah Fawcett, Kenny Loggins dues, or whatever. I would never change, because this was the one way to rebel, and that was the way it was going to be forever and ever and ever. I'm glad I didn't lock myself into being one thing and one uniform forever and ever and ever, like so many punks and others doing now. Sometimes people ask me, how can you remember all this? How could I forget? How could anyone forget? It makes me really sad and a little alarmed when somebody my age I haven't seen in years tells me I remember more of their own childhood than they do. That they have no tangible personal memories of Vietnam or even Watergate, and that homeless was not considered normal until Reagan got in. We were 16 by then. It was on everybody's lips. Senator Sam and those hearings were the best reality show in the history of television, and President Richard Nixon was going down. Justice actually worked, sort of. But some know, some tell me I don't remember much of anything back then. I guess I had a bad childhood. But if I start humming a TV commercial nobody's heard in decades, bing, they remember it. Why? On my 14th birthday, future sham cult figure G. Gordon Liddy and his CIA renegade friends were caught red-handed in the Watergate apartment building, breaking into Democrats' headquarters in what supposedly was a clean election, and what supposedly was a free country. Burned out from stopping Vietnam or not, people fought back. We were pissed. But did we remember? Contragate is even still with us. And Iraq, even worse. Gitmo, even worse. January 6th, long term, even worse. And Bill Clinton's penis, at least that never killed anybody. Now it's not just government dope dealing, killing hundreds of thousands of people for oil, thus making terrorists stronger while the world burns from climate collapse. And now we even put people in concentration camps and just sit on the sidelines pretending not to cheer as Israeli's government commits total fucking genocide in Gaza. now, everywhere you look, every level of government, it's not just one Nixon, it's a whole army of Nixons, now morphed into a whole army of Trumps. The mask is off again. This time we embrace the face. I wonder why these things just don't register anymore. A few years ago, I couldn't even get kicked out of jury duty when I showed up to court wearing a Millions of Dead Cops shirt every single day. Nowadays, people are asleep. Nowadays, we're programmed to believe that Donald's psycho tweets and Ghost of Jeffrey Epstein and Keeping Up with the Kardashians are bigger, more important things to worry about than the ongoing coup going on right now, where Trump doesn't even want to be Orban anymore. He wants to be Pinochet. Just getting started. The missing trillions of dollars stolen by organized gangs of banksters and military contractors in the great Reagan, Clinton, Bush, yes, Obama, Trump swindle still going on. Money we could be using for solving real problems right now. Nowadays, we're programmed to believe that everything from immigrants of a different skin color to trans people needing to use the bathroom and to people of color daring to try to vote, to scientists, teachers, and even librarians are more responsible for tearing apart our social fabric and literally stepping on the gas to speed up climate collapse and bring Jesus back. The conniving, greedy Republicrats. Technocracy barons so strung out like crackheads on their own wealth they don't know what to do with, and now cruelty addiction. They're trying to bulldoze all of us off a cliff into who knows what. It ain't the fault of Hillary Clinton, or COVID masks, or vaccines, or woke, or China, or even Netanyahu that our hijacked, unconstitutional government of the people, by corporations, for corporations, must be overthrown. Must be over-fucking-thrown. We're not fighting against the Constitution, we're fighting to keep it. Somewhere out there is what the late folk singer Phil Oakes called the real America. And I agree that there is something in this land, in us, that is worth trying to hang on to. It ain't all gone in the past with the old school or the summer of love. Go out and find it, feel it, touch it, create it. We are the ones who refuse to knuckle under and become militantly stupid. We are the ones, when people start saying culture war, that they can't have us, and they cannot defeat culture, especially our culture. What's ahead? It ain't pleasant, and it's gonna get worse, but it sure as hell ain't gonna be boring. Buy my soda, said the Moose Diarrhea salesman. Okay, do I even have 1 or 2 minutes left, or should I get the fuck off the stage? 1 minute. Okay, you get a quick excerpt from some people's favorites from back in the day, always updated with new things. Names for bands. Are you as fed up as I am with people with increasingly dumb band names, even from before? Minus the Bear, Suddenly Tammy, Taking Back Sunday, Peekaboo Theory, the Goo Goo Dolls, or so-called punk bands being called Good Charlotte or Knapsack, or real big political statement, Soda Pop Fuck You. Australians have long bucked this trend. Not just King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, but Lubricated Goat, Ku Klux Frankenstein, the God Botherers, the Slug Fuckers, people with chairs up their noses, too much hair for the BBC, new skids on your jocks, they might be vaginas, and more. So why be another band just to call yourself some stupid ass thing? And now I find out there's some stoner rock band or something who didn't even bother research that somebody else already called themselves Magma, and they're one of the best bands that ever existed. The only other band besides the Giz I will fly to see is Magma. They're still good. But why use those dumb names when you could use names like Dyke Van Dyck, Foot in Every Orifice, Dracula Was Gay, Witch Penis, Great Wall of Goat Urine, Republican Buttocks, Diaper Full of Bibles, Metalaban, John Wayne on Acid, Rock Against God, 1 million dead Republicans, Magic Mullet, Drunk Drivers for Jesus, Lactating Pentagrams, The Pope Molesters, Illegal Skin, Bono's Charred Remains, Jean-Benet Milosevic, The Crotch Puppets, White Sambo, Peppermint Leprosy, Manatees on Mars, Hijovi Smegma, or the Ku Klux Flintstones. Thank God for syphilis. The Janitors of Anarchy, Pimples and Prozac, the Stillborn Osmonds, Rodney King Halloween Masks, Dick Cheney Kills Kittens, Salted Embryos, Dyslexic Swastika, Old People with Boob Jobs, Infants on Pitchforks, The Gingerbread Werewolves, Satan's Buttermilk, Concrete Goat, Phantom Stab Wounds, Moms That Snore, Viagra Thieves. I could go on and on for a whole nother set with good or at least interesting band names that you might or might not ever want to use. I mean, two different people took this and started their own Janitors of Anarchy, among other things. Anyway, I am out of time. Thanks for listening. And if you haven't got anything else to do, I'm taking Crenshaw's place at the DJ turntable, Wheels of Steel, on the main stage, because his band's going to play right between two of my sets, and I've heard they're real good. So he says they are. He even raised his hand like a good, well-trained school person. See you later. Thanks. And remember, the more of my album and my shirts you go get at the merch booth, the less I have to carry home. Thank you.